Coming at you, we got 25 questions in a series of 4, so a total of 100 coming your way for 2025 to help you get through that real estate examination. Let's go! Question number 1. Which of the following refers to the right to occupy and control one's property physically? Letter A, enjoyment. Letter B, possession. Letter C, exclusion. Letter D, disposition. Which of the following refers to the right to occupy and control one's property physically? And the answer? Letter B, possession. All right, so these are all going to be the bundle of rights: the right of possession, the right of control, the right of exclusion, the right of disposition. These are all things that you definitely want to memorize for your examination. You just want to remember the bundle of sticks. Every real estate book has some reference to that. It falls under the word or the definition of real property and personal property, so it's usually around there somewhere, and you want to remember these. Question number 2. Two individuals purchase a property together, but they each hold an undivided interest that is not necessarily equal. Upon their death, their interests will pass to their heirs rather than to the co-owner. What type of ownership do they have? Letter A, joint tenancy. Letter B, tenancy by the entirety. Letter C, tenancy in common. Letter D, community property. And the answer? Letter C, tenancy in common. So on exams, you definitely want to review the different types of co-ownership. And joint tenancy, tenancy by the entirety, tenancy in common, and community property are all legitimate items that you do need to memorize. Now, some of these have right of survivorship, some of them don't have right of survivorship. And what they're talking about here in this particular question is they're trying to reference your knowledge base of the right of survivorship. And when you have the right of survivorship, then what happens is that the existing co-owners will receive your piece in the event of your passing. And then what happens with no right of survivorship is it basically means that you have a co-ownership where if you pass away or when you pass away, that your interest goes to your estate. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but no right of survivorship means it goes to your estate. And a right of survivorship in a co-ownership situation means that the surviving co-owner gets your interest upon your death. Question number 3. Which of the following best describes a specific lien? Letter A, a lien placed on an individual's entire personal and real property. Letter B, a lien that applies only to a particular piece of property. Letter C, a lien used by creditors to seize assets in multiple jurisdictions. Letter D, a lien that affects only personal property. And the answer? Letter B, a lien that applies only to a particular piece of property. You definitely want to learn a little bit about general liens and specific liens, voluntary liens and involuntary liens, equitable liens and statutory liens. Question number 4. Which term refers to a legal provision in a property deed that imposes specific limitations or requirements on how the property can be used? Letter A, eminent domain. Letter B, condemnation. Letter C, deed restriction. Letter D, zoning ordinance. And the answer? Letter C, deed restrictions. So terms referred to in legal provisions in property deeds that impose specific limitations are deed restrictions. So this question was fairly, straightforward. They actually use the phrase deed that imposes specific limitations. So the only possible answer here would have been deed restrictions. Question number 5. Which valuation approach is most commonly used for income-producing properties? Letter A, sales comparison approach. Letter B, cost approach. Letter C, income capitalization approach. Letter D, comparative market analysis. And the answer? Letter C, income capitalization approach. So the three valuation methodologies are definitely things you want to know for your exam: the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income capitalization approach. The comparative market analysis is not an appraisal approach. It is an approach for valuation utilized by real estate licensees like salespersons and brokers when they're trying to determine a listing value or an ultimate sales price. Question number 6. John is a real estate investor looking to buy a property that requires substantial repairs and renovations. Which type of financing would be most suitable for his needs? Letter A, a home equity loan. Letter B, a bridge loan. Letter C, a home equity line of credit. Letter D, a rehab loan. And the answer? Letter D, a rehab loan. So this is basically just what is this? So they're giving you sort of this scenario-based definitional style question. And you want to know a little bit about all of these: a home equity loan versus a HELOC, a bridge loan, which is interim financing. And we want to know a little bit about all of these definitions and several more in your finance sections. Question number 7. What does the tenant pay in addition to the base rent in a percentage lease? Letter A, property taxes and insurance. Letter B, a portion of their sales revenue. Letter C, utilities and maintenance costs. Letter D, nothing. It's a fixed rent amount. And the answer? Letter B, a portion of their sales revenue. So in percentage leases, we want to know that it's going to be a percentage of the sales revenue ultimately that's negotiated, of course, in a percentage lease. And now there's a couple of different types of leases, definitions you want to know. You want to know the gross lease, the net lease, and the percentage lease, and the ground lease. So those are the typical ones that you want to know. And in this, a basic percentage lease is going to have some function of the actual sales revenue that's being generated on the property that the tenant is doing business on the premises for. Question number 8. What is the typical extent of the agent's authority in a special agency relationship? Letter A, limited to a single specific task or transaction. Letter B, managing all ongoing aspects of a property. Letter C, representing both buyer and seller in a transaction. Letter D, handling multiple ongoing responsibilities for the seller. And the answer is letter A, limited to a single specific task or transaction. So you want to know the definition of a special agent and you want to know the definition of a general agent. And both of those you'll find in Agency 101 chapters or sections in your books. So learn those and understand that a broker is a special agent, a salesperson, a property manager are all considered general agents. Question number 9. A deed must be blank to be legally effective in transferring title to real property. Letter A, notarized and witnessed. Letter B, signed by both the grantor and the grantee. Letter C, delivered and accepted. Letter D, recorded with the county clerk. And the answer is letter C, delivered and accepted. So we want to know there has to be a delivery and acceptance. It's delivered by the grantor and accepted by the grantee in order to be legally effective. So that's really the conveyancing that's taking place. Obviously, things are signed, but not signed by both the grantor and the grantee. Only the grantor signs the deed. That's something else that you might see on your exam. Letter B there, you want to know that only the grantor signs. And recorded with the county clerk, recording a deed does not necessarily be a requirement in order for it to be valid. You can sign a deed and a buyer and a seller can do this exchange and it's a valid exchange. Recording it notifies the public that this exchange is legit. So there's a difference there. And then notarized and witnessed, if there's a notary seal on the grantor's signature, that's going to be required, but that's it. We could still sign it and we can still transfer it. Question number 10. The unauthorized use of another's land beyond its boundaries is called, letter A, an easement. Letter B, an encroachment. Letter C, adverse possession. Letter D, condemnation. And the answer? Letter B, an encroachment. So we want to know basic definitions for real estate examinations. This is one of them. You want to know what an easement is. You want to know the different types of easements. You want to know what an encroachment is. You want to know what adverse possession is. And you want to know what condemnation is. All of these are just straight up vocab words. And this is textbook. Many questions that you'll see on examinations, I would suspect, that would be just like, what is this versus what is that? Question number 11. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which of the following is a requirement for property managers of commercial properties open to the public? Letter A, ensuring that the property is accessible to individuals with disabilities, including features like ramps and designated parking. Letter B, guaranteeing housing for individuals with disabilities regardless of income. Letter C, providing accessible accommodations only upon request of tenants. Letter D, installing all new accessibility features in both public and private areas of the building. And the answer is letter A, ensuring that the property is accessible to individuals with disabilities, including features like ramps and designated parking. So you want to know a little bit about the Americans with Disabilities Act and understand how modifications are done in commercial spaces. In addition to that, you also want to understand how disabilities and how they affect residential dwellings as well. Question number 12. Which term refers to the legal document establishing the rights of ownership or use of real property? Letter A, trust. Letter B, deed. Letter C, transferred documents. Letter D, title. And the answer is letter B, the deed. All right, so again, here's another one, classic. You just want to know some of these basic definitions. You want to know what a deed is. You'll be asked multiple questions on deeds. There's a whole bunch of content that you'll learn on deeds specifically. What a trust is and sort of how it functions, and what is the chain of title. Transfer documentation, the transfer doc is the deed. That's the conveyancing instrument for real property, like the bill of sale is to personal property. So you just want to know some of the basics here. This is a decent question. Let's see in the next one. Question number 13. Which of the following is not a federally protected class under the Fair Housing Act? Letter A, race. Letter B, age. Letter C, sex. Letter D, familial status. And the answer? Letter B, age. So we want to know the protected classes when it comes down to the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and when it comes down to the Fair Housing Act. And there will be some contrast here and some, so you want to know the differences. So you want to know race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, and disability as the fair housing. And then you want to also understand that age, marital status, and public assistance recipiency are the additional items that are covered under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, but not covered under fair housing. And under fair housing, it's disability and familial status. And those are the two. The other 5 are in sync. So you just want to kind of refresh that, know those protected classes. And then in addition to that, your state's protected classes, depending on your state, you're going to want to know those as well. Question number 14. A borrower is taking out a mortgage to finance a house with the purchase price of $400,000. If the borrower is making a 10% down payment and the bank charges 2 points at closing, how much will the points cost the borrower? Letter A, $3,600. Letter B, $4,000. Letter C, $7,200. Letter D, $8,000. And the answer? Letter C, $7,200. Okay, so the answer to this is a pretty straightforward question. We're trying to figure out how much in origination points we are charging as a lender for this particular test question. So 1 point equals 1% of the loan amount. We need to remember that. And then we can basically go back in here and figure something out. So something to note here is that the number one wrong answer would probably have been $8,000 because a student would have just said, oh, 2 points of $400,000. But the little bit of a twist here was that it's a $400,000 purchase price and the borrower is putting down 10%. So really they're borrowing 90% of $400,000. And if we do the simple math there, then we know that it's $360,000. Well, 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. So 1% of $360,000 is $3,600. And then we multiply that times 2, or 2 points here, and we get $7,200. Question number 15. What is the highest form of property ownership that grants the owner complete and unrestricted ownership rights? Letter A, fee simple absolute. Letter B, fee simple defeasible. Letter C, fee simple condition subsequent. Letter D, tenancy by the entirety. And the answer is letter A, fee simple absolute. So we want to know some of these forms of ownership: fee simple absolute, fee simple indefeasible, fee simple defeasible, fee simple on a condition subsequent, and fee simple determinable. And once you understand those, you'll sort of be able to parse through which is what. And the highest form of ownership in freehold estate is the fee simple absolute. It gives the owner complete and unrestricted ownership rights, subject to the government powers, of course. Question number 16. The act of the government exercising its right to take private property for public use is called letter A, conversion. Letter B, eminent domain. Letter C, condemnation. Letter D, escheat. And the answer is letter C, condemnation. All right. So these are classic questions. The eminent domain and the condemnation thing is definitely, you need to know the distinction between the two. You will see something like this. Many types of practice questions revolve around the eminent domain logic. Conversion is a vocab phrase that you see when it comes to using trust money from a brokerage firm. That's conversion. So there's commingling and conversion. And then escheat is the government's right to take property when somebody dies without a will and has no heirs. That's a government power known as escheat. But eminent domain and condemnation, you want to know the difference here. And the condemnation definition is the act of government exercising its right. The right of government is eminent domain. Question number 17. Which of the following best describes the purpose of a property tax assessment? Letter A, to determine a property's market value for sale. Letter B, to establish the amount of tax owed based on the property's assessed value. Letter C, to calculate how much insurance coverage is needed for the property. Letter D, to appraise the property for refinancing purposes. And the answer? Letter B, to establish the amount of tax owed based on the property's assessed value. So property tax assessments and the purposes behind them, special use, and then sort of general taxation, understanding words like mill and the ability for the government to place a lien, general liens, specific liens, tax liens. You want to know a little bit about all of this stuff. A good, solid question. Question number 18. Which of the following is required for a real estate contract to be legally enforceable? Letter A, it must be notarized. Letter B, it must be in writing. Letter C, it must be signed by a witness. Letter D, it must be verbal. And the answer is letter B, it must be in writing. So, statute of frauds, need to be in writing, certain contracts, and we want to make sure that in order for a real estate contract to be legally enforceable, this contract and exchange needs to be in writing. Question number 19. In a traditional real estate transaction, what type of agency relationship exists when a broker represents the buyer and the seller? Letter A, exclusive agency. Letter B, open agency. Letter C, dual agency. Letter D, single agency. And the answer is letter C, dual agency. All right, so you want to know the different forms of relationships, the different types of agency relationships. You want to know single agency, sellers and buyers and facilitators. You want to know customers only, no clients. And dual agency, you want to know that both sides become clients. And then in designated agency, that one party represents the buyer, one party represents the seller, and then the principal broker is the dual agent that sits in the middle. And you want to be able to define these. Not every state has dual agency and designated agency, but you just want to know the basic definitions to be able to get through this section on a test. Question number 20. What is the best definition of depreciation in real estate? Letter A, an increase in property value over time. Letter B, a decrease in land value over time. Letter C, a reduction in property value due to external market factors. Letter D, a loss of value over time in the property's structures or improvements. And the answer is letter D, a loss of value over time in the property's structures or improvements. So you want to know basic definitions for depreciation. Remember, there's depreciation for tax purposes, and then there's depreciation for valuation purposes when it comes to the cost approach. And those three, functional, physical, and external. So we want to remember those and the definition of what depreciation is. And good question. We'll see you in the next one. Question number 21. Which type of loan typically does not require a down payment and is exclusively available to eligible veterans and active duty service members? Letter A, FHA loan. Letter B, USDA loan. Letter C, VA loan. Letter D, HUD loan. And the answer is letter C, VA loan. So again, we want to know some basic things about different types of mortgage financing, FHA loans, a little bit about USDA loans. What is a VA loan? Definitely want to know what those are. A HUD loan, that was like sort of the red herring. That was a non-existent thing. So you want to know the definition of those three. And this is pretty much textbook what a VA loan happens to be. Question number 22. What does a counteroffer in real estate transactions represent? Letter A, a rejection of the original offer. Letter B, acceptance of the original offer. Letter C, a willingness to start the negotiation process. Letter D, a unilateral contract. And the answer? Letter A, a rejection of the original offer. So a counteroffer is simply a rejection of the original offer. And by the way, the original offer is no longer on the table. So it's a counteroffer, and then we continue to go from there. Question number 23. A listing agent is obligated to keep confidential information about the seller's motivations for selling even after the agency relationship ends. This duty is an example of which fiduciary responsibility? Letter A, obedience. Letter B, loyalty. Letter C, confidentiality. Letter D, disclosure. And the answer is letter C, confidentiality. So we want to know the fiduciary obligations and responsibilities. You can learn them as old car, or you can learn them as cold AC. Basically, in essence, it's care, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, accounting, and confidentiality. And you want to know basic definitions of each one of these to be able to serve you. Trust me, these are going to be on that exam. Question number 24. Which of the following actions would likely violate the Federal Fair Housing Act? Letter A, refusing to rent to a tenant with poor credit history. Letter B, expressing a preference for single tenants over married couples. Letter C, setting different terms for renting based on national origin. Letter D, charging higher rents to tenants with pets. And the answer is letter C, setting different terms for renting based on national origin. So again, violating the Federal Fair Housing Act deals with those protected classes, the 7, race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, and disability. So in this particular question, it was looking for you to understand what are the protected classes on the federal level. Remember, your state could have different additional items in addition to these 7, if it's trying to make it more comprehensive for its citizenry. And then the comparison between the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, also very useful to remember those protected classes, where they are similar and where they are different. Question number 25. Which of the following fiduciary duties is least likely to apply to an agent's relationship with the customer in real estate? Letter A, loyalty. Letter B, honesty. Letter C, disclosure. Letter D, accounting. And the answer? Letter A, loyalty. All right, so this is an interesting question regarding fiduciary duties. And so to a customer, we owe honesty. To a customer, we have to disclose known material facts and defects, and we have to be accountable for money if we're holding it on behalf of this customer, right? So we have to owe them that. But loyalty is 100% to our client. So again, you want to know where the fiduciary duties are, what they are, and sort of how to compare them. This is a really good question, and I would mark it because it's something that it's very subtle, and students might miss this one and sort of pick another answer. All right, we've got this awesome new series to launch 2025 for y'all looking to get your real estate licenses. You got a series of 100 total coming your way to get you through the 2025 real estate examination. We will see you in the next video.